2 mesh RGB. It comes with 3 120mm ARGB fans, and also it allows for customability. For the motherboard, I went with the MSI MPG B550 Gaming Plus. For the CPU, I went with the Ryzen 3800X. For the CPU cooler, I went with the Coolmaster Hyper 212 RGB Black Edition. For the graphics card, I went with the AMD graphics card. I went with the STRIX Gaming 5600 XT. For the RAM sticks, I went with the Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro. It is a DDR4 3600 MHz RAM, and it lights up a little bit. For the power supply, I went with a 750 watt gold fully modular Segotep. And for the memory, I went with a 1TB Samsung NVMe M2 SSD. For my mouse, I went with the Red Dragon Griffin. And then for my keyboard, I went with the Red Dragon Coolmaster. I think that's how you pronounce it. So this is where we place the CPU. Alright, so first I gotta remove the CPU out of the plastic covering that it came in with. And as you guys can see, it's the Ryzen 3800X. And it's kind of heavy, I'm not gonna lie, it's a little thick. So first we gotta tie the corners together, but make sure you actually take the little plastic thing and lift it up. I almost forgot. It was metal, it's not plastic. And then one side is up, you gently place it. You don't push it down, you kind of hover over it, and it should just sink in. And then with that metal stick, you kind of push it down, and it kind of grasps the whole CPU and pushes it down itself. So perfect. So now it's time to put in the 2 Corsair Vengeance Pros. They're both 8GB. So how my motherboard is set up is you have to place it into the second slot of each of the rows. So in this case I have 4, so now I have to put it into the second and 4th slot. That's just the specifications of my motherboard. You can read your manual to figure that out, but I'm not gonna lie, trying to put these in were kind of hard because you kind of not want to break it. It feels like you're gonna break something, but you just pull the clips and you just place it in, and just apply a little bit of force and it should go right in. So for the SSD insert, I just removed the heat shield that was already placed on the motherboard, and I just put it into the slot. And you just put the screw in when you're done with that. So I have an unboxing already of this CPU cooler, but this is the Hyper 212. Just a little close-up view. You can see the coils and the clip-on fan, and it allows for another fan on the other side if you want to add an additional fan. Then you have these connectors to control the RGB. So first we gotta place a little bit of thermal paste. I bought my own. It's the Arctic Cool thermal paste. And then just a little pea size is what I heard is good enough. And then I just remove the paper on the other side of the Coolmaster, which is going to be direct contact onto the CPU. And then you just mount it straight on. But it was kind of hard because it was a little bit slippery. But once the first and second screw goes in, it's pretty much easy. But man, you just gotta make sure it's centered properly and that the screws are aligned with the mounting screws. And then you just take your screwdriver and screw it in. Try to do it in an X type way so that it's easy to screw. So yeah. So now the CPU fan is on, the CPU, the RAM, and the SSD. We're looking good so far. So we're gonna grab this motherboard and we're gonna place it slowly into it. It's kind of heavy, but you just gotta make sure that it is placed securely in, and you gotta make sure that plate on the side is aligned with the case hole, and then boom, we're good to go. Now we just gotta screw this on, make sure it's secure, and we are ready to add the PCI cables. And this is the back. The back looks a lot. And with all of the PCI cables connected, alright, so now it's time to add the GPU to the motherboard and the case. So first we gotta remove these, or we're gonna have to move 2 of these back plates, just because of the sheer size of the GPU that I have. The 5600 XT is a pretty big GPU. 3 fans. It's pretty thick. Pause. But we're gonna have to remove 2 of these, and the screwdriver that I'm using is hella clutch because of the fact that it has a magnetic tip. I advise that if you're doing this PC build, or if you're doing any PC build, because these screws will be going all over the place. Alright, so now we just gotta find the right angle. Like I said, it's not a small GPU at all. But once it clips into the PCIe port, we are good to go. Gotta find that right up. There it is. So after that is locked in, we just gotta get our screws. We gotta make sure it's secure. We get our screws, and then we gotta make sure that magnetic tip is actually used, because like I said, my hands would not fit in that space. But then we just gotta secure it, both ports or both slots, and we're good to go. So I bought one of these adapters on Amazon. Unfortunately, it wasn't able to focus, but this is pretty much going to be placed into a PCIe slot, and this is going to allow for me to be able to use Bluetooth devices on my computer and give me probably stronger Wi-Fi connection, because some antennas will be attached on the back end, which I will show. But it's the same process as the GPU. You make sure it's locked into the port, and then you just add the screwdriver, or add the screw to the top, and just make sure that it's secured, and then we should be good to go. And it's a pretty easy install, because you just download the drivers and it works pretty good. So and this is how it looks on the back end. Just 2 antennas, and it'll be able to pick up anything pretty good. So yeah. Alright, so everything is in. I was able to flip the case. The power supply is in. You can see space for the hard drive at the bottom. Open this up, and it is looking good. And the cable management is not too bad. You can see the headers are added in as well. Alright, so then boom, once the button's clicked, you start to see the RGB start to turn on, the RAM turn on, the Coolmaster RGB turn on. You see the GPU starting to turn on, the Lian lead case turn on. Everything is turning on, everything is looking nice. And then slowly but surely, everything is starting to power up. And you see the keyboard and the mouse lights up, and then you start to see the screen from the motherboard. At first, the RAMs weren't given, the right megahertz. It's 3600, but it's only showing as 2100 megahertz. But you go into the settings and you adjust that, and yeah, good to go.